Hi Lupus, thank you for joining me. Did you know exposure to sunlight can trigger lupus flares? If this is your first time hearing about it, it may be shocking information. Let's talk about it. Before we get started, my name is Natalie Dage. In this space I talk all about chronic disease, specifically lupus, and how it affects overall wellness. I was diagnosed with lupus at the beginning of the pandemic and decided to transition this space into a conversation about health. Lupus is a chronic autoimmune disease that affects millions of people all over the world. It does not have a cure. It causes the body's immune system to attack healthy tissues that are in the body. So essentially, it triggers an attack in the body in the absence of a physical disease, and the disease is a result of that attack. No one really knows what causes lupus, but research has shown that, prolonged exposure to sunlight is a huge trigger for flare-ups. One of the most common symptoms of being exposed to the sun for extended periods of time when living with lupus is having a rash. For some people, it looks like a butterfly rash on their face. Why does sunlight trigger lupus flares? The main reason is because the ultraviolet lights penetrate the skin and cause inflammation in the immune system. It essentially activates the immune system, so it's kind of like it gets a jolt, causing the immune system to initiate this attack process that we discussed earlier, where healthy cells begin to be attacked in the body, which then causes the person to experience lupus symptoms. What's worse is that if you don't actually have any immediate physical symptoms from the exposure to sunlight, it could actually worsen some of your other existing symptoms of lupus, like fatigue, joint pain, headaches, all sorts of, autoimmune symptoms that literally would slow down the quality of your life and your daily activities. I made a video last week when I talked about how I had forgotten about the importance of sunscreen when I'm even inside my home. I ended up sitting by the window and then getting a lupus flare from that situation. What happened in that situation that it wasn't until days later, a couple days later from that sun exposure, that I had the flare. I've gotten so good at managing my disease that when I have a flare up, I typically know exactly when and how I got it. And this was one of those things I just wasn't thinking about in the moment. So exposure to sunlight may not necessarily, make you sick immediately. Sometimes it may take a couple days before you feel it. Here are some things that you can do to manage that trigger. You can stay inside, or you can stay inside during peak sun time hours, which are going to be 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And if you're going to be exposed to, a lot of sunlight, which in my case, I was sitting by a window where there's a lot of sunlight that was coming in, and I sat there for a couple hours. If you're going to be sitting inside by a window, just try to be mindful of the direction of the sun. You want to sit in the shade, not directly in the sun. It's good to wear protective clothing. I wear a lot of protective clothing. People probably think it's like a fashion thing, but it's really like a lupus thing. This is why I'm often seen wearing long sleeves. I'm often seen wearing hats. I'm often seen wearing sunglasses. All of these are really protective measures to keep myself protected from the sun rays. So sunscreen, sunscreen, sunscreen. I can't say it enough. Wear sunscreen, whether you're outdoors, whether you're indoors. Wear sunscreen. Whether you're directly under the sun or just bypassing it, wear sunscreen. It can't hurt you to be overly protected from the sun, but it can certainly hurt you to not have enough protection. Another thing you can do to protect yourself while you're indoors is to use sun protective window film that you can have added to your windows, or sun protective window shades to help block those UV rays so that you can enjoy being indoors without having to worry about being triggered by the sun while you're home. Remember, living with lupus is a job. It requires management. It requires management of triggers and symptoms. And again, it's not about perfection. That's why I talk to you guys about some of the things that I do that I later go, that was not the smartest. Because, it's a lot to manage, and we're not always going to remember to do all of it, especially when you're also living with other conditions like ADHD. In my case, it's like I have to remember so many things in addition to managing lupus. So sometimes some things fall through the cracks, and that's okay. The key is to remember them next time. It's about practicing it, it's about making it a habit. But it does require management. We have to be thoughtful about like how much sun is there going to be there, how am I dressed, sunscreen, sunscreen, sunscreen. You can enjoy a better quality of life by reducing the amount of times that you get flare-ups, as well as the severity of your lupus symptoms. A huge part of enjoying life with lupus is really managing the disease so that we can reduce, if not eliminate, the flares. By taking the necessary precautions from the sun rays, you can actually enjoy the sun without it feeling like it's personally like attacking you and personally violating you and personally like destroying your life. There's like ways to make that enjoyable without necessarily seeing the sun as something that is negative. There's no need to fear the sun. The sun is not our enemy. It is, but it isn't. It's really about taking the necessary precautions. I still go to the beach every year. It's a matter of managing the beach. When I go to the beach, yes, I wear a bathing suit at the beach. Yes, I bring an umbrella and I sit under the umbrella. Yes, there are times when I get in the water and I go have fun in the water. And yes, I do come back to my seat and relax and chill out. It's really about finding balance. It's about finding balance between restriction and freedom. A life with lupus is about managing that balance, effectively managing it so that we don't go overboard. People that are good at living a quality life with lupus are people who know their limits. It's important to know your limits. It's important to respond to your body. It's important to listen and pay attention to what your body is feeling. If you find yourself feeling more tired, then you slow down. If you have a lot of energy, then you try to knock out some of the things that you have to do. If you like eating something, but you know that thing is a trigger and you've been feeling sluggish, then you don't do it. If you like eating something and you know that thing is a trigger and today you feel like being a little rebel and you want to have some of it, then have some of it, but just don't overdo it. You don't have to eat this much of it. You could just have this much of it and be done and just satisfy that craving. So it's not really about perfection, and I'm going to keep repeating that. It's not about perfection. It's not about never making a mistake. It's not about eliminating everything overnight. You have to test things on yourself and see how you respond. There was a time when tomatoes, as an example, was a huge trigger for me for flares. I went through a period where I did not eat tomatoes in anything. I'm now in a space where I can eat tomatoes and they don't bother me. I'm now in a space where I can eat garlic and it doesn't bother me because I do it in moderation. So for me, the key is managing it with, this desire to establish that balance by doing things in moderation, because I want to live a joyful, happy, fulfilling, and healthy life with lupus. And that's why I created this space, so we can work together to figure out what that would look like for each one of us. So what do you think about what I just shared about the sun? And what are some things that are considered triggers that you use in moderation and have found to be okay for you? Leave your comments in the box below. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, au revoir.